Hi, everyone. Gene Nichols with you here for another edition of Community Roundup and welcoming back to our microphones Dr. Jenna LeComte-Hinely. She is with the HARC Group, Health Assessment and Research for Communities, dealing all about issues here in the Coachella Valley, life issues, and we've talked about a number of major issues and matters in weeks gone by with Dr. Jenna. Today, she is discussing the whole issue of alcoholism and alcoholism awareness. Dr. Jenna, welcome back to our microphones.
Well, thank you for having me back, Gene.
You know you've been a frequent guest when we can just simply refer to you as Dr. Jenna without entirely going and saying to everyone that you are Dr. Jenna LeComte-Hinely every time we mention your name.
Well, I'm just always impressed. You're the only person I know that gets my name perfectly right every single time. It's very impressive.
Well, I'll stop while I'm ahead. Speaking of impressive, HARC does a great job out here compiling statistics, looking at trends on major issues that affect all of us in some capacity. And the latest batch of numbers you have, again, with a societal issue that is front and center as always. What do you have for us?
Well, April is Alcohol Awareness Month, and so it's a great time to shine a light on drinking behaviors and whether there are healthy behaviors and whether there are some that are unhealthy. And thankfully, our research shows that most people in the Coachella Valley, most adults, are either non-drinkers or they're drinking at healthy levels. In fact, only half of our adults age 18 and up have had an alcoholic drink in the past month.
Is that right?
Yes, actually, it's gone down significantly since the last time that we surveyed it. So that's always impressive.
So all of these wonderful spa resort and hotels and restaurants, they're all serving up beverages for visitors instead of residents.
Instead of residents, exactly. It used to be, when we did our survey in 2013, we found that 65% of our local adults were active drinkers, as in they had at least one drink in the past month, and now that's down to about 51%.
Of course, one drink in a month, that's barely enough to even qualify a person to be a drinker per se, isn't it?
Exactly. And what's really interesting is that we follow up with a lot of questions for those who do drink alcohol, and most of them drink 1 to 4 days, maybe 5 or 6 days per month. So they're not drinking a lot. They're drinking once or twice a week. And then we also follow up and say, well, on the days that you do drink, how many drinks do you have? And the majority, over 2/3 of them, are drinking 1 to 2 drinks each time that they do drink. So that is representative of some very moderate, non-problematic drinking habits. But that's not to say that problematic drinking habits don't occur here in our valley. In fact, we have about 38% of our local drinkers, those adults who do imbibe, have had at least one binge drinking episode within the past month.
And those are some of the ones that lead to problems, right?
Exactly. Binge drinking is essentially drinking 5 or more drinks in one sitting for a man or 4 or more for a woman, or really anything that gets you drunk, getting up to that level of blood alcohol content.
Right.
And so we've got those 38% that have had at least one binge drink in the past month, but there's about 10,000 people, more than 10,000 people in our valley who've been binge drinking 7 or more times in the past month, and that's really representative of a problematic pattern of alcohol consumption that could be very damaging to health.
So the first thing we have to do is be aware that there is a problem out there that could exist and does exist for a lot of people. Then we have to turn our attention to see what resources we have to possibly help those people going forward, and what do we have available locally to do that.
We have some great resources available. 2 of the ones that I'm familiar with that are our partners are ABC Recovery Center in Indio and the Betty Ford Center in Rancho Mirage. And both of these are nonprofit substance abuse treatment facilities. They do inpatient and outpatient. They're both really dedicated to treating not only substance abuse, especially alcohol abuse, but also sort of the mental health component that goes with it. Many people who are drinking heavily and who do have an alcohol problem also have mental health problems to go along with it, such as depression.
And so when we tie all those things together, of course, they could really give you a double whammy, because depression impacts not just your drinking, but the rest of your life, work, family, relationships, etc.
Exactly. And, that's a really important thing to point out, is that not everything about drinking is just you personally. It's not just you that your drinking impacts. And one of the questions that we ask that always freaks me out a little bit is whether people have driven in the past month after having perhaps too much to drink. So perhaps you had a few too many. So I'm sure it's an underestimate, because I'm sure there are people who don't think that they had too much to drink but really did. And I'm also sure that there's people who don't want to admit it. But about 3% of our local drinkers, about 4,200 people, report that yes, in the past month they drove under the influence of alcohol. And that is an activity that really puts others in danger very seriously.
The police and first responders out here in the desert know full well that because we are a resort area and we are in Southern California, considering the size of the cities out here being relatively small compared to, say, Los Angeles or San Francisco, the desert overall, in general, does have a very large drunk driving problem, which is why we have so many of these sobriety checkpoints that are out there on any given weekend to try to be somewhat of a deterrent to people doing that. And yet you don't really have to have a problem with alcohol in general to be a drunk driver, right?
Yeah, and you know what? A casual drinker, it can just be a bad mistake, an error in judgment. And so that's why I'm really hoping how popular Lyft and Uber are getting will hopefully dissuade people from driving drunk, because it's so easy to get a car to come pick you up and relatively cheap. So perhaps we'll see a decrease in the number of people who drive under the influence in the future because of that phenomenon.
Doctor, for people who are struggling with alcohol-related issues, do they need some type of referral to get into a place like ABC or the Betty Ford Center?
I think you can just contact them directly, and they will help you out. If you have insurance, seeing if the insurance will cover it. If you don't have insurance, talking about alternative ways to get scholarships or funding. They don't want anybody to be turned away because of inability to pay. So if you talk to their intake people, it's a really, really great first step to getting that assistance.
Has HARC looked at any further numbers as well, Dr. Jenna, when it comes to not just the problem of alcohol-related issues in terms of the alcohol itself, but in terms of health problems beyond that alcohol abuse can lead to?
It's true. Alcohol abuse can lead to liver disease is most notable, which we don't have very high rates of here in the Valley, fortunately. It can also be a contributing factor to cancer. Just about anything can be a contributing factor to cancer. We have about 2% of our local Coachella Valley adults have been diagnosed with liver disease, so that's more than 5,000 people. So it definitely is an issue here, but not a terribly common one.
Okay, and then of course, like anything else, whenever you have something in excess or beyond an amount that might be considered to be moderate, you always have the fear, or at least the end result, that could be obesity. And certainly with alcohol, because of what happens in your system when you ingest it, it could also lead to a diabetes-related thing, because alcohol really turns to sugar, doesn't it?
It's true. And so diabetics need to be especially careful with their drinking habits and make sure that they know how it does affect their blood sugar levels and that they don't get into a dangerous situation there.
All right. If people want more information about the numbers that HARC has put together, or getting some assistance either here in the desert or even in a facility beyond, can they contact HARC as a way to perhaps get a little bit more information going forward?
Sure. We're happy to be a resource. We don't provide any direct services ourselves, but we know lots of great partners who do, and so we're happy to be that resource.
Excellent. How do folks get a hold of the Health Assessment and Research for Communities group out here in the desert?
You can go to our website, which is www.harcdata.org. That's HARCDATA.org.
All right. And Dr. Jenna, the next time we speak with you, in about a month or so, we'll be talking about something a little bit on the brighter side, because I know we've sort of broached some topics of late that have been a little on the side of life in which people need some assistance and a little bit of help getting through. But we're actually going to be seeing you guys over there at HARC hand out some awards coming up in early summertime, and that'll always be refreshing.
It's true. We'd like to talk about not just the negative aspects of health, but also the positive aspects and the organizations and groups that are doing really, really great things in relation to positive health and wellness. All
right. So your wellness awards coming up. We'll talk about that on another edition here of Community Roundup. My guest has been Dr. Jenna LeComte-Hinely from the HARC Group. That's Health Assessment and Research for Communities out here in the Coachella Valley. Dr. Jenna LeComte-Hinely, always great to talk with you, and continued success. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Gene.
I'm Gene Nichols. This is Community Roundup.